Evening all.
Good evening.
It is now 6:34 p.m. I am going to call this meeting to order.
Yes.
Can we start with a roll call, Stephanie?
Yes. Alex Colazzo. Brucey Cummings. Caleb Gunter.
Here.
Carrie Villeneuve. Charlie Lykoff.
Here.
Deborah Rosenbaum.
Here.
Greg Martin. Joanne Smith. Mariana Seiler. Mary Peliquin. Tangerine Moore.
Here.
Zilla Tarko. We have a quorum.
Thank you. As a minor point of business before we move forward, I've been asked to remind all Parks Board members to utilize the microphones. They're recording minutes now, and it's very important that we work on speaking into microphones so it can be recorded. With that said, we'll move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right. We have two sets of minutes. I believe one was brought back to us, if I'm not mistaken, for a review. It was the minutes from April 27th meeting.
Yeah,
And,
I'm bringing it back. It was brought to my attention that there was a conversation, actually, it was Brucey Cummings that brought up a hotel next to, well, it looked like it was on the Hall of Fame property or the aquatic complex property, but it really isn't. It's a hotel that's being built next to the 7-Eleven, which is immediately, it's the neighbor of the aquatic complex. That being said, apparently the discussion from me made it sound like I was discussing a hotel on the aquatic complex property. I was not talking about a hotel on the aquatic complex property. It was nearly the property next to the 7-Eleven, which is basically the neighbor for the aquatic complex. I just wanted to clarify that. So I did not discuss a hotel. It was more that the hotel was next to the aquatic complex.
Thank you. Any other discussion potentially on this minutes?
Is that minutes from the last meeting?
April 27th.
April.
Okay.
I don't think you were here for that one.
No, I was absent that one, but I noticed on this minutes, they marked me absent as well, so I just want to amend that when it comes around.
Okay. We'll
That's for
We'll
April
address-
27th. Alex? That's for April 27th?
Yeah, that's affirmative. I was here on the 25th of May, the last meeting, which I believe these are. Yeah, we were both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, when we get to, when we
I'm
get
looking,
to.
I guess we have two sets of minutes.
Right.
So I'm looking at the old one.
So right now, we're on April 27th. Deborah had an amended
Understood.
motion.
Any other discussion on April 27th?
No.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April
I
27th?
moved to approve.
Any seconds?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll do a roll call vote for that.
Oh, whoops.
Alex Colazzo,
Present?
Brucey Cummings,
Yes.
Caleb Gunter,
Yes.
Carrie Villeneuve,
Yes.
Charlie Lykoff,
Yes.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Greg Martin, Joanne Smith, Mariana Seiler, Mary Peliquin,
Yes.
Tangerine Moore,
Yes.
Zilla Tarko. Approved.
And you could put yes down for me, too. I thought we were doing roll call again.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, now that we've approved April 27th, can we move to May 25th? And Alex, you said you had something?
No, yeah, I was looking at the old set of minutes. I didn't realize we had two sets of minutes here. So the new set of minutes marks me present, which is correct.
Yes, it has you present. Any other discussion, amendments? We have a motion to approve. Any seconds?
I second it.
Do we need a roll call, or can we all do in joint this time?
A joint. for approval minutes. We could do a joint purchase. Yes, a joint.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None heard. We'll move forward. Thank you.
Can I say something about the minutes in general?
Go ahead.
They are very accurate. I noticed the transcribing of the minutes are very good, and I wanted to thank you for doing such a great job.
Thank you.
Very accurate, very detailed. Thank you.
Do I get a raise?
Did you speak that into the mic?
You want to record that, make sure it's in the minutes?
Okay. That being said, we'll move on to our first item on the agenda, department update. Carl.
Good evening. I have a few items. I know we have quite a few items, but I want to make you all aware, of course, which you see the banner right here in front of the dais here, the 4th of July event taking place on the beach. There is a small correction of what we normally do, which is the fireworks typically go off at 9. This year, the fireworks will go off at 8:45. So if you plan on attending, get there early, and it'll be a great time. Also, as most of you know, but just so we all are aware, next month, the board does not meet in person. And also, as you know, this summer kicks off our first summer in the past 2 years where we have close to our typical summer camp numbers. As you all know, 2021 and 2020, our summer camps were a little different. And so this year we're back to field trips. We're pretty close to full capacity at our camps. And it feels good to get some sign of normalcy in that particular area. So with that said, that's my department report. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Are we moving forward this July with July's Parks and Rec Month as a department here as well?
Yes, matter of fact, we will be doing a Parks and Rec Month. Because I know our staff did our staff reach out to you about the proclamation portion? All right,
No, I
we'll
was
work that
looking
out.
forward to it.
Because it is Parks and Rec. Because I remember making a note about it, and I'll follow up on that.
Isn't there also there we go. Isn't there something at Starlight Musicals for the Parks and Rec celebration in one of the Friday nights?
Yes, during our Parks and Rec month next month for our, I'll have to verify which particular Friday it is, but we'll have vendors out there, some games, and some additional individuals out there, kind of maybe some arts and crafts and face painting and booths for Parks and Rec night.
Quick question, Carl. Just curious to know why they moved the 4th of July fireworks display up. I mean, it's still light out at 8:30 at night this time of year.
So it has to do with overtime for police, and instead of paying the additional OT for 9 o'clock, which those officers really wouldn't get off until after that, there is a cost to that, and so the 15 minutes kind of helps reduce that.
Okay, I hope it doesn't.
Carl, that
right
Friday
out
night
from the
is
fireworks display.
that Friday night is July 22nd. For
Yep,
Parks and
thank
Rec.
you. Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Carl? Brucey, speaking to the mic.
Is it not on? It's on. It's on, okay. Carl, at the Starlight Musicals, at the beginning, it was directed at the audience that we not have dogs on the area where everybody's seated. And I noticed that a lot of people came in with dogs, not a lot, but there were several. So I thought maybe if it was mentioned a few times throughout the show, because these people obviously weren't there to hear the beginning announcement, so it might be something that would
Good
help.
point. I'll also have our rangers kind of be there to give
Yeah.
reminders as well.
Thanks.
Anyone else for Carl?
One more question?
Go for it.
Carl, you had said that you had, or the Parks has an idea of what they're going to use for covers? I mean, for the park, the open park in Las Olas to shade people? I wondered whether anything had been decided or?
Yes, so so at the Great American Beach Party, we had a huge tent that we had on the loop area grass, and we'll be bringing that back again for the 4th of July.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Carl. My understanding is we need to move agenda item 2 a little bit down for post 7 PM.
Yes, sir.
Can we move forward with the update on Huizinga Park? Thank you.
Good evening.
There's a little button on the very front of the mic.
Okay. I'm just going to find our presentation. I think it's right up here while I'm doing that. Thank you very much for having us tonight. My name is Jenny Morejon. I'm the president and CEO of the Downtown Development Authority for Fort Lauderdale. I'm with me tonight is our team, Alex Sayas and Matthew Scher. And we're really happy to be here tonight to present to the Parks Recreation Advisory Board an update on Huizinga Plaza. Let me just set this up so it's a better view. Okay, and just by a bit of a way of background, and I'll be as concise as possible, but I think there's some nuggets that would be helpful. The DDA is an independent district that operates in partnership with the city of Fort Lauderdale. I was fortunate enough to actually work for the city of Fort Lauderdale for about 16 years, so many of my former colleagues and understanding the importance of neighborhood participation, advisory board, and the guidance that you all give our policymakers. So again, thank you for your time and your effort on this board tonight. As you have probably been to, you know where Huizinga Park is in downtown Fort Lauderdale, really at the heart and soul of Las Olas Boulevard and Andrews Avenue on the beautiful New River and Riverwalk, Fort Lauderdale. It is within about a 5-minute walk of many new residential developments, upwards of 5,000 new residents, many of whom have joined our city in the pandemic in the past 2 years. And downtown Fort Lauderdale has grown tremendously with new hotel offerings, offices, restaurants, and residential buildings, all within close proximity of this park. And we do have a wonderful network of parks. Huizinga Park is the only park not owned by the city of Fort Lauderdale. And there's a lot of information on here, but I know we've shared this backup that maybe you have had the opportunity to read or can read later. But I'll hit on some high notes of the history. Back in the 70s, the DDA purchased dozens of acres in downtown, sites that were underutilized, maybe vacant. And many of those pieces of land we then donated or gave back to the civic community. It's where we have the Broward Center for the Performing Arts, our Museum of Discovery and Science, the main library, many parts of the Riverwalk. But the DDA leaders at that time kept the parcel along the river where Huizinga Park is today, waiting to see what would be the best use for that park. And in the late 90s, it was decided that downtown, because it was primarily an office district, needed a place where residents and visitors could come after hours or on the weekends. And so they created a festival park in 1996. And the park was named after our famous and very generous philanthropist and entrepreneur, Wayne Huizinga, who owned 3 Fortune 500 companies and 3 South Florida sports teams. And his impact on downtown and the community truly left a legacy, and that's why the park was named Huizinga Park. The park itself is about 2.2 acres, And it is surrounded, like I mentioned, by Riverwalk, by First Avenue, which is between the new Hyatt Hotel, and Las Olas Boulevard, which on the other side is the Art Museum, and of course, Andrews Avenue and the bridge. I wanted to point out, besides kind of that past history, in more recent years, the DDA, in partnership with the City of Fort Lauderdale and Riverwalk Fort Lauderdale, we have been working on trying to bring to life prior planning efforts. And the city had a Riverwalk district plan in the early 2000s that really focused on how parks along the Riverwalk could be improved. In 2019, we brought in the Urban Land Institute. They're a global entity that helped focus on city planning and development issues. And they created a series of recommendations after interviewing about 150 members of our community, including many members of the Parks Advisory Board at the time, to get some input on how parks could be improved downtown. We also recently authored a precedent study. Our staff looked at great cities and great parks in great cities around the country to find out what works, what doesn't, how did parks need to evolve to complement the growing downtowns that they were in, and what type of partnerships would best be used to really make that vision come to a reality. So we looked at cities from Dallas to Detroit, Sarasota to Tampa, Minneapolis and Houston, and really found that it takes that combination of private sector and public sector engagement and investment to make sure that these parks are exceptionally designed, well-maintained, and activated in a way that really serves the broadest part of our community. So as I've mentioned, you've probably been to the park, perhaps for a big festival. That's primarily what it's used for and has been. Or maybe you've strolled along the Riverwalk. Some of the challenges that we've found when we looked at why make some improvements on this park, besides the growing downtown population that really wants to utilize it in different ways, is that there's some challenges today where if you're on the Riverwalk, you might not necessarily know there's a park there. And if you're up by Las Olas, you might not know a beautiful river is just a short walk away. So we really wanted to connect the two, the Riverwalk and Huizinga Park, in a more meaningful way. Also, the amphitheater, while it was designed to actually have performances facing the step seating towards the back, towards the river, most of the events happen on the lawn, and it's great when those events happen, but sometimes the other 300 plus days of the year, the park isn't utilized for regular day-to-day visitors, employees and residents, and those who are now traveling to stay downtown. So this is, and I'm going to walk through, in some cases, kind of flip through these slides to give you really the overview of what the design vision is. So right now, this is the existing conditions, as I just showed on that aerial, with a lawn surrounded by beautiful oak trees. The fountain, the Spirit of Wayne Huizinga Fountain at the corner of the intersection. The Riverwalk comes under the bridge and circles around a beautiful legacy live oak, and then comes back out with some jagged edged kind of docking that goes over, not docking for boats, but a deck, if you will. And, much of the area is just grass with trees planted in it next to the bridge. So we thought it was very important, these lines on, these dots on this, it's a little hard to read perhaps, those are the trees. And trees are so important. I heard we just talked about shade out at the new Oceanside Beach Park. How do we really make sure that we're maintaining the tree canopy that's there today? So the thought was to create many new opportunities for pathways and circulation, most of which are under those wonderful live oak trees, but then start to introduce a series of outdoor rooms. If you can think of a park, in this case, it's about 4 acres, including Huizinga Park, the Riverwalk, the area under the bridge, and along First Avenue, as a series of unique experiences as you go through a park. Some may be more passive in nature. You may want to sit and read a book. Some may be more activated. And so these kind of pods that have been created really start to transform the park into a series of multiple usable spaces. And you'll notice 3 major new additions that we think are completely important for urban parks in very dense areas. One is public bathrooms. And when you think about whether you want to spend time in a park, particularly, if there's any type of concessions and events, how do we make sure that there's clean, safe, and well-maintained attended bathrooms? We think that's important. The original design of the park from the 90s contemplated bathrooms, so we are planning on adding public bathrooms. We're also looking to have small areas for concessionaires. Maybe it's an ice cream vendor, somebody who sells coffee, something so you can, grab a bite. Maybe you're on your lunch break or walking through the park. And the biggest thing that we learned from other successful parks is when you have an aspect of a commercial activity that helps generate a revenue stream, you then have the funding to be able to make sure that the maintenance and operation of the park is at the highest level for the type of use it will receive. So we felt it was very important to activate the Riverwalk with a restaurant, with a separate solicited restaurant. We're going through a process right now to make sure that interested restaurateurs have the credibility, the capability, meet the style and demand so it's appealing to a wide spectrum of our community, not so exclusive you could never go there, not just a fast casual place, but a small restaurant that would have outdoor seating on the water's edge. So when you kind of put all that together, there's still a large area for a civic lawn, so you can have recreation, physical recreation. There can be events still within the park that we know are important. And then a series of, as I mentioned, these outdoor rooms, which we have various slides that kind of show you through renderings what we're looking at. And before I jump to that, I'll just talk a little bit about the process that we used in the past 2 years to get here. We worked with our downtown stakeholders, community members, residents, adjacent property owners, and we came up with kind of a vision for the park, an early vision. We used that to then spend DDA dollars. We have our own bonding capacity, and we've allocated $1.75 million to seed fund this project. We've used those funds, a portion of those funds, not all of them, to hire an internationally renowned design firm, Perkins & Will. They have offices in Miami, but they work globally, to work with us since really about the beginning of this year, to come up with final design plans and construction documents. And then we will be going out to bid for construction of this project with an estimated schedule to start next year. So I just wanted to kind of tell you where we're at in the process. The design team is at about 60%, so a little more than halfway done with the design. So what you're seeing here today has been the accumulation of public meetings that we've held, workshops with our board of directors, and feedback from stakeholders in the urban core. So these are a little redundant and just different views showing kind of an aerial. But if you can imagine walking across from, say, FAU or Broward College to the entrance of the park from First Avenue in Las Olas, the idea would be to transform the spaces, still keeping a lot of shade, comfortable seating areas that can also be used as spaces for activity. We believe it's important to have movable tables and chairs, so you have the freedom to kind of sit where you want, to have more lush landscaping at the ground level, but not to block any views back and forth from the river or from a safety perspective, to have wonderful pathways that really connect these outdoor seating terraces, spaces where you could bring your laptop and actually work outside of the office. You could meet a friend. You could relax by yourself and just enjoy a respite from the downtown bustle. To really create kind of an elegant feel within the park and have the lawn still be a very open space, but with some unique grading that allows for some sloped seating areas. Everyone that we heard from felt it was very important to maintain the fountain. It's kind of the iconic piece at the corner of Las Olas and Andrews, but it is in somewhat of disrepair. And I see Carl shaking his head, we worked together on this park, and It's a wonderful place, but it needs a little bit more pizzazz. It needs to be refurbished and actually maybe make it just more of a statement piece at the bookend of Las Olas as you enter the downtown area. This is the initial conceptual rendering of the bathroom and pump station building for the fountain. So the idea is that there would be bathrooms. We have some other views, but I think it's important to note that they would be light and airy. There would be a sense of openness, not in the private stalls, of course, but so you feel very safe and comfortable walking into bathrooms, early in the morning through the evening. That also there would be an attendant on site every day of the week while the park's open. And we envision like city parks that the park would be open from early morning to, mid-evening, possibly 10 p.m. or so. So making sure that these bathrooms would be well attended, clean, safe, and maintained. Some other kind of outdoor rooms, an interesting area where maybe it's a bit more sculptural, but also where people could sit. We've felt it was important that not just to have traditional playground material, but again, kind of bringing art within the park and having these sculptural elements where kids could play, dedicated spaces for different uses, but also flexible enough that kids of all ages could sit in this little pod. I don't think there was a rendering in here, maybe it comes up, but next to that, we see that there's the need for a dedicated dog run. So if you do go down there, pretty much any day of the week from about 4:30 to 6:30, Huizinga Park has become the unofficial downtown dog park. And we know that many of our residents have furry friends and that's furry family members. That's wonderful, but we think it's important to have a designated area, again, that's well drained, well maintained, cleaned. This is a rendering that shows under the bridge. We've been working in close partnership with the Broward County Cultural Division through their art project that's going to light up the piers of Andrews Avenue Bridge to extend that space further up so that you have a permanently protected from the elements event space where you could host, in partnership with Riverwalk and other partners, markets and other events and create more space for the public where it doesn't exist today. Some of the other concepts is where Riverwalk connects with the park to have an upper deck or a terraced area where, again, small events, performances could happen kind of on the spot, but you could also sit and relax. And I think the theme that you're seeing through this is, although it's a fairly small public space in downtown Fort Lauderdale, there's a lot of unique experiences that one could have in this park, which keeps people wanting to come back. Different ideas for seating and very elegant but also important lighting at night so it's safe. One of the other big concepts is to really bring and add more Riverwalk, if you will, so more length, more space for people to walk and come out closer to the water's edge. The large tree that you kind of see here is the bicentennial oak, and it's important that we make the space around it much better for the health of the tree. And potentially at night being able to make sure that, walkways are lit, especially when you're close to the water's edge, which everyone loves to be next to the new river and see our wonderful boats and yachts go by. So that was a lot of kind of eye candy to show you and hopefully get you, aware of the vision for how Huizinga could be transformed from kind of a one-dimensional open space with a lawn to a series of outdoor rooms. So how are we going to do this? We, as I mentioned, we have seed funded this project through DDA bond revenue, and we are looking at a public-private partnership. I mentioned the restaurant and the lease that we would hold with the restaurateur. That lease revenue would support almost a third of our estimated construction costs, which today for the 4.5 acres is at approximately $15 million. So the restaurant lease is a key component of that. Private fundraising. We see how valuable it is when the community and the private leaders in our community come together and support our civic and cultural amenities. And we've seen great success with that, whether it's Parker Playhouse, Broward Center, and other efforts. And we think it's important that the community members that are willing and able give back to this project. And then also the public sector. We have been fortunate to just receive word from Tallahassee and the state budget and through the governor's office that we have received an appropriations funding at the tune of $950,000 to also go towards the capital for this project. So the state believes that this is a very valuable project for our community and for Florida in general. And then also City of Fort Lauderdale. The city is our key partner in what we do at the DDA, but also for Huizinga Park. We have been leasing the park to the city for the past 6 years, and we did that as an agreement so the city could provide activity in the park, but also assist us with maintaining the park. So we have begun discussions with city administration, elected officials about requesting a capital contribution towards funding the construction of the park of $5 million. That could be spread over time. It helps us and allows us to take the restaurant revenue lease, private funding, and go and fund this project up front so we can begin construction. And as the left side of the slide shows, we plan to kick off construction early next year and wrap it up and have an amazing world-class park that I think we could all be extremely proud of and use on a regular basis by the middle of 2024. I mentioned that we have been out, and I'm wrapping up here, speaking to members of the public, different civic groups, the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations, most recently in this room. And we have provided a short survey that every time we give a presentation, we welcome feedback from those who heard it. So if you wish, you could scan our QR code. But also you can connect with us. And that concludes my presentation. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about the project, about the process, and about the park. So thank you again for giving me the time tonight.
I have one question, just considering the restaurant. I'm curious to know about the criteria for, is it going to be a franchise deal? Or is it more lucrative for the city to go after someone that's already established? Or is it a private, like chef-run restaurant and more individual? Is there some kind of criteria for that restaurant that's more or less beneficial to the?
Good question. So we have hired a commercial real estate brokerage firm that specializes in restaurant leases to go and look at restaurateurs locally, regionally, and around the country who are interested in taking on such a unique space, in building their own building, which means they have to have the financial wherewithal and capability to do that, that have demonstrated success in running and operating restaurants, more than one before. We have not excluded franchises. We also think it's important that the concept is somewhat, if not very unique to Fort Lauderdale and this location. We think that that would actually be a draw. We have also felt that it was very important that the price points be attractive enough to the wide variety of our community, that it's not exclusive. It's not some place you would only go, on once every 10 years for an anniversary. It's something where you can enjoy lunch and dinner, possibly even breakfast, so it appeals to a wide audience. In addition to those criteria, we have terms of the lease that we're in the process of negotiating, the payment structure. So our broker, I keep trying to look at you, but I see the Dell screen. Our restaurant broker is currently speaking with those restaurateurs, and we're in the process where we're getting that feedback loop to see, who bubbles to the top. And we anticipate by this fall, we'll have our chosen restaurateur in place. That restaurant site would be within the property that the DDA owns within the park, and it would go through a separate building process because, again, the restaurateur would finance and build that restaurant.
And the funding that you said the state kicked in, $950,000 is specifically for this park, or is that just?
It is. We had to submit a very thorough application, and it's for the entire capital project. So that 950 would fund construction of the vision that you saw here today, a portion of it.
One last question. I'm just curious about the restaurant competition. Was the dock considered in the park plans at all? Is there any, because I know you look at any restaurants on the water, it would be a huge draw.
I think if, for those of us that have had the fortune to sit on a waterway and have dinner or lunch, it is so appealing, and to be able to go on a boat is even more so. Before we even started this process, we did hire a consultant to evaluate the seawall and the dock. And fortunately, our seawall is in fairly good condition at that stretch of the Riverwalk. But we did learn that it's pretty impractical from a navigation standpoint to have actual dockage in that location. It's so close to the Andrews Avenue Bridge, and there are day dockage, the transient dockages on the south side, so it kind of impacts that area. However, a water taxi stop right in that close proximity would be provided.
You wouldn't happen to know offhand if, since you're in the downtown association, the Downtowner Saloon is right across the way and they have their own dock. Is that public dock? Like,
That is.
would you be able to dock a boat there and just walk across the bridge? And
Absolutely.
okay, I wasn't
It
sure if
is
that was
public.
private
It's part of the city working with the state, and yes. and
Okay.
Several of those,
Good to
they're
know.
transient dockage.
That's it for me. Thanks.
Go ahead, Brucey.
First, you said there was 2 point what acres of land, and then at the last, you said 4 acres. So are you assuming the acreage underneath the bridge and part of the public lands as part of the project?
Yes, good question. So the DDA independently owns 2.1 acres, which is primarily Huizinga Park as you would think about it, with the lawn and the amphitheater. However, we felt it was very important to really think of this project holistically, to the water's edge, under the bridge, almost to the doors of the Museum of Art and to the new hotel on First Avenue. So we designed this project including county-owned land under the bridge, city-owned land, which is the Riverwalk Park, and that totals the 4.4 acres.
And the trees, are you planning on keeping all the trees, or are you going to have to move trees?
There are, I don't know how many trees will be maintained, but we did a complete tree assessment. There were few that were in poor enough condition that would not be successful to stay. But I believe there's almost 100 new trees that are being added and about 60 that are being relocated. So one of the
60 or 16?
16 within the area that they could be better, they could be more healthy if they were moved to a different location. We have completed shade analyses to make sure a majority of the park is covered by trees at the hottest hours of the day. So a big focus from day one was always increasing the tree canopy, which helps lower the ambient temperatures and creates a more natural, sustainable park.
Thank you.
Any more?
Quick question, I'm sorry, Caleb.
Go ahead. No.
I have a quick question, aside from the fact of what we're talking about real here. Back in the day, and I want to say the 80s and 90s, that park was actually named Bouvier Park. What's the history behind that?
So some folks who have been here a bit longer than me, if I'm not mistaken, and I will certainly correct the record if I find out, one of our former city, either elected officials or administrators, was Mr. Bouvier, and the stretch along the water's edge actually is named Bouvier Park. The city owned what's now the Riverwalk, effectively, so that was Bouvier Park. But that's really the stretch along the Riverwalk is Bouvier Park, as it was called when Riverwalk was built in the 80s, and then DDA Plaza was the original name of our park, and then, as I mentioned, in the early 2000s, it was named after Mr.
Yeah,
Huizinga.
no, it was actually, I think the Huizinga Park itself, in its proper state as it is now, was referred to as Bouvier Park because the Museum of Discovery, not the museum, the Fort Lauderdale Museum used to hold, and I chaired one of them one year, the Los Olos Art Festival before Howard Allen took over. and took over all of Las Olas. It used to be privately funded through the museum, and it was a fundraiser for the museum. So we always held it at Bouvier Park.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just curious if you knew that, but that would make sense, though. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Quick comment as well, or question. When it was Bouvier Park, it was the Oktoberfest and Blues Festival, and it was a true community gathering location. It appears that this new design is not set up to try to have large events or large community gatherings, but rather smaller ones. Is that part of the program, to remove some of those larger events from this downtown area?
Yes and no. There's definitely signature annual events that the community has come to love. You think of Winterfest, you think of some of the events that Riverwalk Fort Lauderdale host, or some of our signature 5Ks. The challenge has been that the park itself has really only been a festival park, and so many days of the year it does sit unactivated or uninviting. With the large lawn that we're maintaining and improving, we think there can still be events there, but it does not need to be the main park in downtown Fort Lauderdale that hosts big events. We've seen the success with the Las Olas Beach Park holding large events, with Holiday Park being such a large, wonderful destination. So the idea is to make this a multi-use park that doesn't just focus on big events, but definitely have activation that supports the broadest community.
An interesting question was raised. What percentage of the area that the restaurant would be sitting on is in the DDA's owned area versus the city's owned property?
100% of the restaurant pad would be within the land owned by the DDA. We have gone to the restaurant market with a pad, if you will, a footprint for a 5,000 square foot restaurant. I may be off by a couple hundred feet, but essentially 5,000 square feet. So this is not a very large restaurant, and it makes up just that small corner of the site.
No problem. Any other questions, input, insight? Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you for your time. I
Lovely.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah, good
Well done.
preservation.
Thank you.
Presentation.
We're good for item 2 now? Okay. All right, the next item would be the previous item, the Park Bond property purchase, Coral Ridge Isles, an update on the Park Bond purchases with Ken.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to see everybody again. Again, for the record, Ken Krasnow, Vice Chairman of Colliers. We are the city's real estate advisor. We're here to give you an update on our park acquisition process and talk about a specific opportunity in front of us this evening. Do I have a presentation? Is this, am I supposed? You have my presentation, but am I supposed to be showing something? Stephanie, Carl?
Caleb? Chairman Caleb, we have public that Chairman Caleb, we have public that wants to speak on this item as well when the time comes.
Okay. Good evening again, once again. So we are here to give you an update. Again, just to reiterate where we have been, as you know, as part of the park bond, approximately $30 million was set aside for acquisition of new land for park space. To date, we have acquired approximately 4.5 acres. We've expended about 7.8 million, as you can see, of the 30 that was allocated, which leaves us roughly the 22. You see the 4 stars there on the map that represent the 4 properties, ironically, one in each district, as you can see here, across all of the 4 districts within the city. One of the areas that I wanted to bring to your attention, and I know we've talked about this before, you'll notice the 2 down at the bottom in District 2 and District 4 that are on the water, which is really the essence of our conversation here this evening. We've been actively, aggressively trying to acquire land for park space that is waterfront adjacent, specifically in District 1, which is what we're here to talk about this evening. Since we've started this process, we've looked at a number of properties. We've made well in excess, I would say, of half a dozen offers on properties unsuccessfully because of the state of the market and so on and so forth. Somewhere we didn't have necessarily support of the neighborhood association, and I do believe that you're in possession of a letter from the president of the Coral Ridge Isles Civic Association supporting the property that we're going to talk about this evening. So without further ado, what we are here talking about is a property in District 1 in Coral Ridge Isles, approximately 0.86 acres, 1400 Northeast 53rd Court, as you see there. An existing 31,000 square foot multifamily building with 33 units. As I mentioned before, one of the key areas in District 1 that we've been looking for, waterfront, for kayak, and for other water-based activities. You note the footnote there that currently District 1 has no waterfront access for any of their constituents north of George Inglis Park. So this presents an opportunity to provide a number of the residents in the district with waterfront access and waterfront activities. The purchase price, as you see there, is $7.75 million. And that is the price that let me give a little background on this property. This property is part of a portfolio that is currently being purchased and is under contract. It's a 3-property portfolio. The other 2 properties are down by the 17th Street area, and the buyer of we approached the buyer. We've been approaching a number of the commercial units across this district, as on both sides of the canal there, as you see there. There's industrial properties on the other side of the canal. Again, with the axis of trying to identify waterfront access, we've gone over the past couple of years to some of the individual homeowner lots, anything that we can get our hands on to try and gain access to the waterfront. So when we found out that this property was under contract, we approached the contract holder about a potential acquisition, and the price that is in front of you this evening is what they have the property under contract for. Would be willing to retain the other 2 properties in the portfolio and sell this one to the city. So that is the property that is here before you in terms for your consideration. I think this was just sort of a little state of kind of where we are, but obviously we're still in a very very competitive, in spite of everything that you read and see on TV in terms of interest rates and inflation and so on and so forth. It's still a very active and vibrant and competitive real estate market. And so that is the property that we are presenting for your consideration this evening. And I will leave it there, and happy to answer any questions. Again, I talk about this, we went through this the last time we were together. We are obviously in a very active real estate market. We are very sensitive, as I mentioned before, in District 1. We've come up across a number of properties that would have provided access to the waterfront, but for a variety of reasons, various neighborhood associations were not in support. This property does meet that criteria of both having neighborhood support and waterfront access. And you can see there where we're continuing to focus for other areas. Obviously, kayak was one of the ones that was on our focus. Pickleball, I'm assuming, I don't know if that's on tonight or not, but you know, you're going to solve that problem. So we're making progress, and obviously we listed some of the neighborhoods that we've targeted. As I mentioned before, this one being a priority. So I'm sure there are questions, and I'll leave it at that. So thank you for your time.
I have a question. I'm assuming, all right, assuming that the purchase goes through, have you given any thought as to how much it's going to cost and who's going to fund it? As to how we're going to build a park? Obviously, we need this kayak. We need a kayak. We've got kayak launch, pickleball, dog parks, and so on and so forth. How much money is that going to cost? And have you gotten that far? Have you?
We're focused on acquiring the sites that meet the criteria. You know, Carl and Phil and the whole AECOM team that's charged with, you know, both spending money to renovate parks as well as activate new lands. You know, for instance, the properties that, you know, we talked about here on Waverly or Southwest 5th and 12th. I'm not up to date on, you know, where the budget or the activation is for these properties. So we're focused here on trying to identify sites that would be under the city's control, and then the process would go accordingly in terms of what the
expensive.
I think Deborah's asking a very similar question to some of them that I've been thinking is, some of these other sites that we purchased were vacant lots. And so the building is already gone and we're starting from a flat surface and then spending money. This is less than an acre, but it's a 3-story building that has to be demolished, cleared, and then planned on what's being built. And it kind of came out of nowhere, but I'm very curious as to if there's anything else available out there that's not $7.75 million just to buy the site. But
as I've mentioned, we've been scouring the market. We've made a number of offers on other properties. We're never in the ballpark of meeting the market, either with industrial property that's across the canal there, or some of the other multifamily. More, the multi is obviously more commercially oriented than someone's house. But no, we have not. We've been, like I said, this has been finding waterfront land in this district has been on our target list since we started this process in 2019. It is that challenging of a market, and doubly so when you add the waterfront aspect to it.
Okay.
Seems
First
awful
thing that
expensive.
comes to my mind is we have a dearth of places for people to live, and you're going to tear down all this? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And $7 million for a kayak launch? I don't think so.
It just seems to me it's awful expensive to tear down a building when,
Yeah, I mean, when
yeah,
there's
yeah.
such a need for housing right now?
Well,
Can I throw another comment or another thought? First of all, yes, I think this is a very expensive site. Ken, I'd be interested in what the investment component is. But we are talking about generational land we're trying to acquire here. This isn't just for today or for tomorrow. And I think land is a shortage in our city. We talked about this last time. Can we find other existing buildings or components, maybe where there's a rent stream that allows us to carry it for a little bit longer, knowing that 5 years from now, we have to build the park on it, or we have to knock it down? This doesn't look like it's that kind of a property, Ken, but I don't, you just got individual rents, I'm assuming, but, you know,
This is I think it's, don't quote me on it, but I believe it's a fully rented, yeah, it is generating income. There is no, again, people have made the assumption that the building is being torn down or so on and so forth. That, there's been no determination in terms of what this site is going to be used for, how it's going to be used, or so on and so forth. So it's to Greg's point, it's site specific that is hard to come by and get our hands on for what is seemingly a market driven price. And again, how it's incorporated, how it's used, how the kayak launch is incorporated into an existing current building. But again, this is a building that is generating income as we speak. So if the city were to purchase it and do nothing with the building for a period of time, it would be generating income. So none of those decisions have been made as far as I'm aware. We're just bringing the opportunity to acquire a site in the district that meets the needs of waterfront.
I'm not so sure that the city of Fort Lauderdale wants to become a landlord.
I just say we have a property manager? Yeah, no.
No, I'm not sure. Just start fixing refrigerators and putting in windows and fixing water heaters. I'm not sure that we're in that business.
No, I do think this is the creative, we have to look at things this creative. If this was a single tenant, building where the tenant was taking care of that, we could carry a little time on it. But I'm going to go with everybody else here. This is a pretty expensive project. For 33% of our remaining budget. I don't really see that going for less than an acre of land. But I think this is a different look than just vacant land we've been looking at before. And I appreciate that. I think that's what we got to start looking at.
One of the questions I have, you say they have the support of the Civic Association?
Yes, there is a letter that.
How many residents or how many members of that Civic Association? Because there's 30 homeowners on the street. They're going to be greatly impacted. Dead-end street, by turning this 3/4, 0.86 part of an acre into a park. I wonder if those 30 homeowners are really on board with that kind of traffic and that kind of influence down their street, their nice, quiet, dead-end street that will no longer be.
I think, I don't know how many units are in that building, so I would say there's, how many?
33.
So there's 33, there's already traffic from 33
Yeah,
units.
but you put a park there with a dog park and kayak launch and possible boat launch or whatever it could be. And I do think, along with some of the other folks, that it is rather expensive for that kind of
I think the Civic Association is here, so I'm sure you'll hear from them, but I do want to say, I know it's expensive, but there's nothing in District 1 that's going to be cheap.
Right, I understand.
And a lot of times when something goes for sale, it's not even on, it's a.
Oh, yeah, it's a commercial piece of.
So it's, I'm not saying that something couldn't be found cheaper, but I don't think so. And I don't think it would be just a kayak launch. I don't think we're paying $7 million for just a kayak launch. So I don't really want to hear it, labeled as such. I think, not that you're doing that, but I just, my point is, in District 1, anybody that lives in there, or even in Fort Lauderdale, you know that something this size is just, there's not going to be any empty land like this, that it's going to cost really a whole lot less, in my opinion.
I think we're looking at, 7.5 to buy it, 7.75 to buy it, a couple $100,000 to demo. Hopefully you don't have any asbestos or
I
anything.
was going to say, what about contamination?
Right, so this is an older building, so it's probably got the asbestos in the tile and all that other good stuff, so that's just my take on it.
And do you
Tangerine?
think that once we buy this, that we're gonna have to give funds for these individuals, homeowners to move out as well? We'll have to compensate them for moving, for giving up their places?
This is a, this is a rental building, so tenants have, all the tenants are subject to leases.
Oh, these are not homeowners.
This is not this is not a condominium, this is an apartment building, for lack of a better word. So all of the
renters.
people that are current residents there are renting apartments under short-term leases.
Ken, what is,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I also need to clarify the record. This purchase is before you to use park bonds money for the purposes of buying this property to use it as a park, nothing else. So there are 33 tenants with active current leases on there. We would have to displace those tenants or terminate their leases, serve them proper notice, and move forward with that. Also, regarding, the city's currently in its due diligence phase, so I'm not at liberty to disclose what's been submitted because it's in draft form, but we are still doing due diligence. So there is also a letter of intent that has not been executed by the city manager, but what's before you today is to purchase this land, and that land will be used for park purposes. We're not going to hold on to the building. The city's not going to hold on to the building and keep the tenants on the building. I just wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate that. That's very important insight.
I just got something I want to point out to the board while we're deciding on this. And although I think everybody's made great points, and it's a huge parcel of land, and it is on the water, but, to everyone else's point, I mean, it's a huge amount of money. And when you look at the location of it, it's for, let's say, the kayak launch, for argument's sake, it's kind of at a dead end of that canal strip, which is still pretty far from, I mean, that waterway goes up a good ways, all the way into Santa Barbara Lake over there, I think by US 1. But it's basically right behind Dixie Highway, right off the tracks. So when we're thinking about building a park, right behind the tracks, it's going to be a noisy spot. That's something to take into consideration. And then there's also some commercial properties that are directly adjacent to it that are, I don't know what kind of noise or smell pollutions might be coming from there. But it is a large parcel of land on the water, so, I mean, it's something to be considered. But if we want to put that much money into a spot that is, may not make a great park even once it's all leveled and, made nice with trees and nice little area, it's still got to deal with train noise and some other issues probably.
I just have a question. So you mentioned that it was a 3-property portfolio and that this one would be one of them. But how much do you know, or can you say how much all 3 properties are going for? Because are they kind of getting a good deal because they're trying to sell it?
No. This is, they allocated a price for each of the buildings. So this is the one so the other buildings are different sizes in different locations. One is twice the price, and one is a little bit less, but it's a smaller building.
What did it appraise as?
Say that?
What was the appraisal?
We're still waiting for the appraisal to come back. It's not complete yet.
Ken, this is on a residential street. They're all houses on the water. What are the average lot sizes of those houses along the street, and what would be the sale value if we for comparison, instead of 7.75 for this end cap, if we took two houses on the street, knocked the buildings down and combined them into something very similar of size, are we talking about, $3 million to knock down two houses and make a park? I mean, I'm just thinking value here in comparison.
We've tried. I have the number in front of me. I don't have the data in front of me. It's been challenging. We haven't been able to actually put, the two together. And then, sometimes we'll get some pushback from associations about, lots that are right in the middle. People seem to be more receptive to properties like this that are at the end of a street as opposed to in the middle, middle of a street. Some of the middle lots, were too small. So we have looked at trying to acquire multiple residential lots, and like I said, it's been challenging to, I don't want to say impossible, but it's been challenging. We haven't been presented with any opportunities to allow us to do that.
Yeah.
Just for the record, for comparables, I mean, if you just look at what we've actually acquired with park acquisition, acreage versus price, it's hard to compete with that. I mean, they've definitely hit some home runs here.
Yeah, we're at 4.5 acres, including waterfront space, for 7.8, and this is less than an acre for 7.8 in theory. Right.
Mr. Chair, also, if I may, Patricia Saintville Joseph, Assistant City Attorney. Any recommendation, should you make a recommendation tonight, will be subject to the completion of the due diligence phase and, of course, completion of an appraisal on the property, because that, as indicated, has not been completed. And it will be contingent upon the seller closing with Oak Tree Havana? Can't read the name here. Coral Ridge Isles LLC. Anyway, the person whom they're supposed to purchase the property, because there is no title vested in the current seller. Is that correct?
Say that again?
The company or the owner, alleged owner, has not received title from.
They have not closed yet.
They have not, correct. So it has to be contingent upon them
Correct.
closing
Yes.
before they can transfer
Yes.
title to the city.
This would be their only interest in proceeding with this transaction is to do a simultaneous closing. So as they close on the three properties, they would then flip is the wrong word, but they would then, sell this one to the city after they close on the three. Yes.
Right. So that's what I want to outline. Indicate that we need to complete the due diligence phase, get the appraisal done, get that amount. Then you have to, your client, well, the other gentleman has to close before the city can get title. So all that has to happen, but what's before you tonight is whether this board wants to approve the purchase of this property,
Okay.
contingent upon those things happening.
Correct. We're still obviously waiting for the appraisals. We're still waiting for the due diligence. We would obviously present this to commission as well in August. So, still a lot of work to be done, but the opportunity to, we couldn't work on that simultaneous closing and meet your next meeting, I guess, which is until the end of August, and that would be after the commission meeting. So that's why we're in front of you a little bit out of sequence, the way we normally, come to you. So a little unorthodox, but it is a unique opportunity.
Yeah, understood. Kerry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a lot of the same concerns that have been raised. And I got to tell you, I would not feel comfortable approving this without a couple things. One, the thing that Deborah and Caleb hit on, and Charlie, and that's understanding the full financial commitment to this. What are the conditions of the seawalls? I mean, are we going to have $1 million worth of seawall repairs? How much is demolition going to cost? What's a general ballpark of what's going to be put into, of what we're going to pay to put into this? And where's that money going to come from? And that matters in terms of making this decision, because you're talking about spending $7.75 million. How much parking is there going to be? How many people are going to have access to this? And secondly, I really wouldn't feel comfortable approving this without greater input from the rest of District 1. And I don't know if that's just from Commissioner Moritas or some other way, but I mean, we have 4 districts. 4 divided by 30 million is 7.5 million per district. And I know it's not exactly allocated that way, where each district gets an exact specified amount, but in general, I think that's kind of the understanding. And so is all of District 1 kind of okay with their entire parks acquisition budget going to a less than 1 acre parcel? I mean, how many people kayak, versus other things? I mean, I'm not saying that that's not a great use and the waterfront isn't important. I'm just saying, is all of District 1 on board that their entire parks acquisition budget needs to be spent for waterfront acquisition? Is that the overall primary thing that all of District 1 wants the most, versus 4 parks spread out throughout the district that are readily accessible with, not waterfront access, but other uses that would be more widely available and widely used? It's really just, kudos on finding it and going out, like Greg said. But before I'd be comfortable committing all of District 1 budget to a less than 1 acre property, I don't even know how much parking is going to even be there, that people are going to be able to access it, or how much it's going to cost and where money's going to come from. That's tough to approve.
Understood. Thank you. Carl, I'd also asked, were you able to find out who owns that strip? When I was looking at old LoopNet drawings trying to get background on this property, I could see directly across the canal there was a bunch of trees overhanging the canal. It looked very overgrown and whatnot, and I kind of asked the question, who owns that strip of land on the other side of the canal that runs linearly along 14th Avenue? Is that city-owned land?
Not to my knowledge, but Angela, do you know? No.
It's not city.
Okay.
It looks like it would be part of an easement or something like that. I mean, you obviously
I'm
couldn't
guessing
build a
how it is
house
by
there.
state.
I think it wouldn't be any different than a swale or something like that. But who knows?
I've been told by some that it was city-owned land, so I'd really like to know, because in my mind, I quickly envisioned something similar to Victoria Park Drive, where you get that canal along the strip there that you could run along Linear Park potentially, if it's already city-owned land, and we're not in for $7.75 million buying property.
We were investigating one of the industrial sites on that. We couldn't come to terms with, we were far off, but they in fact owned the land across the way. It was not, so it's not like that entire strip is owned by the city.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not like that. That strip is city-owned land.
It is or is not? Interesting.
It's part of this property.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at Ria Vista,
Right.
That's where I was
if
going.
you look at like Ria Vista and Cordova, the houses on one side of the property also can have docks across the street on the canal. So it's a good question, Caleb. I don't know, but it doesn't look like there's anything.
No, as you said, according to the property appraiser, if you pull up one of the other property, you would see that little strip that goes with the property across the street. And like I said, when we were negotiating with one of the other industrial owners, we didn't come to terms, but they very clearly stated that they own the property across the street on the water.
No problem. Any other questions from the board for Ken? I know I was told there's public input tonight as well on this.
Yes.
I do have another question.
Go ahead.
Ken,
Please.
what is the zoning for that? I mean, are there the buyers that are presently in negotiations, are they contemplating tearing that building down and building something a little taller, a little higher that we've seen going around our city? And it's just a better option for the residents in that community to have a park there than to have some 6 or 8-story building being built at the end of their street.
I don't know exactly what it is. My
The
belief.
Civic Association, I'm assuming you're with the Civic Association.
But
Maybe
they were planning on maintaining it as a.
As a rental property, as an income property? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And back to, Carrie's point, I will tell you, I know Commissioner Moritas has been pushing us for basically for 2.5 years to find waterfront property. She has stated repeatedly that is a major concern for, her residents, that a lot of them don't have waterfront access. And I know that she's, supportive.
Are we moving forward with
Yes.
public comment? Thank you.
Public comment, we have first Peter Parrington, followed by Rick Butchin.
Chair, I'm Peter Punnington, city resident and board member of Coral Ridge Isles Civic Association. I wonder if you'd like to hear first from our president, who can address some of the questions that were raised about the road that this park is proposed on, and the efforts that the neighborhood has made. If not, he's going to go after me, so would you like me to proceed?
Can they swap spots?
If they want, absolutely.
I want to take that first.
Good evening. I'm Rick Buchanan. I'm the president of the Coral Ridge Isles Civic Association, and I think I can answer a lot of the concerns that the board members addressed. Number one, I'd like to tell you that the canal that the property sits on actually is connected, goes up under the 56th Street Bridge, goes under the 62nd Street Bridge, and connects over to McNabb and goes under the McNabb Bridge and can actually go on out to the intercoastal and to the ocean. So all of those bridges have forfeit limits, so the height of the vessels that can pass under are subject to tidal swelling. But the other thing I would say is the first question that was asked about the residents of the street, I will tell you, the residents of the street will think that the city has answered all of their prayers if that building is removed. I've been the president of the association since May of 1921, and I probably spent 15% of my time answering questions of residents about drug sales on the property, parking, illegal parking, loud parties, and when they try to address those issues with the property manager, and their animals leaving presents for the other residents to clean up. And when they've tried to get those issues addressed with the property manager, and keep in mind the current property is owned by a California corporation and has a local property manager, but her response is, I'm not responsible for what they do off my property. Right. So it's not a question for them. I will tell you that most of the lots in Coral Ridge Isles are less than a half acre, if that. Over half of them are not on water. Everything that is east of Northeast 15th is not on water, and everything that's south of Commercial, because we have a small portion south, is also not on water. In answer to the question about what the people in District 1 want, the commissioner, during this entire process, polled each civic association about whether or not, in District 1, whether or not they wanted a park. Most of the civic associations in District 1 have multiple parks. Coral Ridge Isles is one of the few civic associations that has one small landlocked park adjacent to the Florinata Elementary School. And originally, we were supposed to have access to the playground equipment at the school, but for the last 2 years and more, that property is locked up. And so the citizens have no access to it during the day. So what we're talking about here is the ability for the community to actually be able to take their children to enjoy the land, to actually be able to interact with nature. And I will tell you that most of that lot, or of the little perimeter on the other side of the canal that you're looking at, and there's some issues, some is owned privately, other is owned by the city, but most of it is populated by mangrove trees, which are protected. So they don't allow for the possibility of those trees being removed in order to build a park or create additional parking. In terms of the question about parking, there are 85 parking slots on the current property. So that would allow a significant number of people to be able to park, visit the park, and come and go. Most of our parks have hours in terms of when they're open and when they're closed. The apartment building has no such hours. So people in the neighborhood have folks racing up and down the street at 1, 2, and 3 o'clock in the morning, waking everyone up and creating turmoil. I would just add that while, and Mary, I believe, said this, the property in Coral Ridge Isles is now running about 10 to 20% above previous costs. We had a property on land that was about probably 600 square feet, maybe, no, that's not right. About 6,000 square feet that sold for $1.5 million. And it was on a similar stretch of water. It was at the end of a lot. We looked for, over the 2 years that I've been president of the Civic Association, and a little bit longer because I was the secretary before I was the president, we looked for a number of sites in Coral Ridge Isles. We looked at another commercial property that was significantly smaller than this, that the owner wanted $4.4 million, and he was going to keep an adjacent apartment building next to it, which would have made this little landlocked park with apartments on one side and apartments on the other, and then this little park in the middle. So a lot of different things have been explored. We've looked at individual residents. We've looked at a variety of issues throughout Coral Ridge Isles. And as I said, I know the commissioner did poll the individual district civic associations about whether or not they were looking for additional parks. So if there are any other questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to do that. I would ask you to consider making a recommendation to the commission support this purchase. I do believe not only would it support my residents, but I believe it would increase the livability of the city as well as increase the livability of District 1 and giving people access to park property that they currently don't have.
Thank you.
Anyone? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name again is Peter Partington. I'm come to give you a slightly more personal perspective. I'm a board member now of the Coral Ridge Isles Civic Association, but I have lived in Coral Ridge Isles for 35 years. Firstly, I've got to compliment the city in general for what a great job they're doing with the parks throughout the city. I have seen marked improvements, particularly recently. But I have to tell you that my neighborhood has significantly deteriorated in terms of amenities. And it's a big neighborhood. It's 1,000 homes plus in this neighborhood. Now, when I moved there, I had 2 small children. And I brought them up in Coral Ridge Isles. As I said, I've been there for 35 years. And we had Florinata Park, as it was called at that time, which was actually land owned by the school board. The school board just had a small school there, and my kids and all the neighborhood kids greatly enjoyed that area, where now a much larger Florinata Elementary School is sited. The neighborhood has use of the remaining area in the evenings and theoretically at the weekends. But the whole issue of accessibility to school grounds is kind of fraught at the moment, and it is very poorly used. There is now no natural heart to this neighborhood, which there was 30 years ago. In addition, and this is not within the neighborhood, but going back those 30 years, I used to go and play with my kids on the executive golf course to the west of Coral Ridge. There was a driving range and a pitch and putt course. That has gone. So the amenities in my neighborhood have significantly deteriorated compared to what you have been doing through most of the rest of the neighborhood. So now I no longer have children, they're long gone. I have grandchildren. So when my grandson comes to visit, there is nowhere that I can walk with him to play equipment. I have to drive to Bayview Park and go there at the weekend, Bayview Park, and see how busy that playground is. So I'm here, it is a lot of money, I agree with that, but my neighborhood in terms of recreational opportunities has deteriorated, and I've seen it happen over 35 years. I'm bearing personal witness to that. I would urge you, if it looks like, because of the cost, that you're going to vote this down this evening, I would urge you to come visit our neighborhood and see what we don't have, in effect. One last thing, maybe again, not a direct comparison. My grandson lives in Orlando, on the outskirts of the downtown where they live. I can walk with him to 4 parks. And Orlando is doing a fabulous job in that regard. So thank you for your time and your indulgence. I know you're all volunteers, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all we have.
That's
it.
all?
Yep, that's all we have.
Okay. All right.
More discussion?
Please.
Can we understand the process of, I mean, Mr. Buchanan did answer several of my questions. I still, it would be really useful to know from Commissioner Moritas, like, did the other civic associations like full on represent, like, we don't want any parks. You spend the money wherever you want. We don't want a park in our neighborhood. Like, and also, having the same concerns about the cost and where it's going to come from. Is so for the process, I mean, if we voted no tonight, I mean, the seller that we're buying from hasn't even closed yet. It's not like this. It's not like we would somehow like lose the deal. But I do want to understand that. I thought that both gentlemen who spoke were compelling and did answer some of the questions, but I really do still have those same concerns and want to know if those concerns can be addressed. But I understand we don't meet again until August.
Mr. Chair, I just need to clarify that sellers are requesting closing with the city on August 28th, 2022. So they are giving us a deadline to close. So I just want to give you that information. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, sir? Yes.
It might be the 27th, but yes.
I'm looking at the draft
Yeah,
letter of intent.
I think
It says
it's-
28. Unless you've changed it. Okay, 27 or 28. But I was reviewing the draft letter.
It does seem like a lot of money, but it also, a park within 10 minutes walking, it's for 1,000 homes. I didn't realize that there were that many homes in that community that really probably don't have a whole lot of places to go to for a park. The parking thing sounds pretty well taken care of with the 85 parking spots they presently have. I see why they want a park because of what they don't have, and also because of the situation that they have at the end of the block there. Sounds like some of our vacation rentals that we all have in our neighborhoods as far as the partying and everything going on. But it's a lot of money, but how it gets developed is really not what we're being asked for to do tonight. From what I understand, we're just being asked to recommend that we spend the $7.75 million, and recommend that the money gets spent in some other way. The money's going to have to come to be to do whatever they need to do for the building. But I don't see, to your point, was the fact that there isn't a whole lot of property over on the east side of town that you can acquire at any point in time for that kind of money. It's just gone way, way, way overboard. And I know it's 1/4 of our remaining budget.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny this request.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Discussion.
I have a quick question. How far is it from the main street down that aisle? Down all the aisles, or is it a half a mile, quarter of a mile? How far? Does anybody know?
You're asking what the linear run is from the closest street down the finger, basically?
From the northeast 15th Avenue down to the end of that street. I'm trying to get an idea, like over at the aisle, Citrus Aisles. It's, 3/4 of a mile?
I would say it's about the same. It's 30 homes. It's about 30 homes.
Yeah,
from
so
one-
that's
It's
quite a long
probably
walk.
about 600 feet. There are 15 homes on either side.
Right.
And what we're talking about there is Northeast 15th Avenue.
Right.
The major streets are south of that, Commercial, and east of that, Northeast 18th, which is
Right.
4 lanes, where Northeast 15th is only 2 lanes, and so forth. Now, it is the main street going through Coral Ridge Isles, and we use Northeast 15th as the barrier or the divider between what makes the southeast quadrant and what makes the southwest quadrant. So, but that's the situation, and it is a dead end. It does dead end into that commercial property. So,
I know we have a motion.
could I just say one other thing? Commissioner Moritas was prepared to come to the meeting tonight, but had been advised that it wasn't necessary for her to be here. And since I was coming and we've had these discussions over the past 2.5 years, I'm telling you what I've heard, what she's told me. So I'm assuming that she wouldn't be making that up because she's very interactive with her board presidents. And we were supposed to have a luncheon this past Wednesday. We're going to be meeting on Monday here at City Hall. The District 1 presidents will be having luncheon then. So,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
When's
We
the
have-
due diligence period up?
What was it?
When is the due diligence period up?
I'm going to defer to staff on that.
Is this a do or die? We either buy it now or forget about it?
Correct.
So, okay.
I'm a little concerned with what Carrie is saying as well. I mean, yes, it is a lot of money, and the other thing I'm concerned about is, is everybody going to be coming back to us for money to fund this park? Now that you said
As part of the bond money, I would think they would.
Every bond dollar is allocated already.
Well, and for
That's my
playground,
concern.
That and we've-
kayak launch.
So,
We already have
but
one
how
property in
many- how
District
many
1 that
more-
we've closed for
I'm
over
sorry.
$1 million.
She has to take minutes.
More importantly, how many homeowners associations make up District 1? Not just one, but we know it's not just Coral Ridge Isles, but Mary, you have an answer?
This question was asked at a District 1 pre-commission meeting, maybe more than one time. Not exactly this particular property, but I can't remember if it was actually, I should say that, this particular property, could have been. And on that call, there's always at least 4 or 5 civic association presidents, and they all were for a park in that area. Now, no, I can't recall exactly, the costs or anything, but because that area doesn't have any kind of park on the water, everybody was in favor of it. The other problem is that George English Park, I don't know how many of you use George English Park or try to park a boat in there, but it's packed. Now, it's a little bit like that because of construction, but even pre-construction, it is packed. So there really isn't a lot of, there is, to my knowledge, I'm thinking really hard of, in the parks or anywhere, if there's any kind of small boat or kayak type launch, and I don't think there is. I think it's just George English. So I have never heard anybody say, no, we don't want a park. But I can't specifically remember that it was this particular parcel. But I've never heard one negative thing from anybody in Coral Ridge or of those 5 or 6 presidents who are always on that call about that.
Right. I know that Coral Ridge has been looking for parks for a long time, but that didn't just mean Coral Ridge Isles. I think Coral Ridge around 26th Street was always identified as a park desert. So.
Well, houses are sold for millions and millions of dollars in Coral Ridge, not on the water, never listed, never in the MLS. Yeah. So I don't think that'll ever be a park in Coral Ridge.
Well, let's go back, guys. Our charge is to try to identify land for future parks for the longevity of our city. Okay, and I believe that it's good to know what we think we're going to do. But ultimately, the Parks Department will have to figure out how to program that or build that. This is just for acquisition of the land, right? So at some point in time in the future, the parks budget will have to have the monies to say, we're going to make it a boat launch, or we're going to make it a playground, we're going to do whatever the case may be. But this charge is just to acquire the land. I want to say this again. I think it's great. This area definitely needs a park, right? This is not the opportunity.
No.
33% of our remaining budget, this is an income property that we're not going to get the income on. It's just too expensive. I don't think we can pay that kind of money for this piece of land. Something else that shows up there, we assemble 5 houses and we can find, it's not on the water, but I don't know that we can solve for how much is it going to cost to convert it to a park today. Maybe for the next piece that shows up. It makes sense, but ultimately we just got to acquire the land and then see what the future need is for skate park or,
If I may, I'm sorry. If If I may, Mr. Chair, I wanted to answer Ms. Seiler's question. For now, the due diligence expires on the August 24th, unless we're granted an extension.
Okay. Go ahead, Brucey. You had your hand up.
Yes. Is there a time limit on our money for buying property? Because I'm
I
not
think
going to
it's a
say
30-year
that,
bond.
but I've seen a lot of times in Fort Lauderdale where we've had this boom followed by a bust. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't just save some money until the bust comes and then put it into some properties.
I second that.
It's too much money, in my opinion, for that one piece of property. Too much.
Understood. I think we've got a lot of discussion going on here that's very similar in nature.
Time to put it to a vote.
I don't know if we need to continue to discuss unless somebody has something more as a positive to Ben.
I know we have a motion on the table, and I think the knee-jerk reaction is to just decline it, but I also want to consider possibly, I for one would like to hear from since Commissioner Moore, this is our new District 1 Commissioner for our community. We were switched over when they changed some things around with the zoning, and I would like to hear, since she's been in communications with some of these from her. I know she was supposed to say, and she did mention something when she had recently attended our civic association. And I don't know if we can, table this thing until our September meeting, until after they close, and then possibly, have a vote then.
Well, they're indicating otherwise, but, that's time will always tell on that. But I agree that it'd be nice to hear.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, because the city is intending to use park bond money, this matter has to be voted on by you to either approve or deny the project, the acquisition of the land, before the city can move forward with closing. The city cannot close using those funds without your approval, recommendation, or denial. You have to make a decision. So without a recommendation, the city cannot close.
Right. We have a motion, and I'm okay with that. I'm asking if there's any other.
Can't the commission still overrule us whether we approve or deny?
Correct.
Yes, they can, but you still have to take a vote. So you can't, you have to vote tonight. You can't
I think we need to
table the item.
put it to vote.
All right. Let's do a roll call, please.
Well, what's the motion?
Motion is to
Deny. The motion and second is to deny.
There is a motion on the floor.
The motion is to deny the request. It was first by Greg Martin, second by Deborah Rosenbaum. Alex Collazo?
Yeah, I'm going to
Hold on.
decline.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're voting to deny it. So if you say yes, that means we're denying.
If you say yes, you're agreeing to denying.
Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with Greg to deny this proposal at this time.
Bruce C. Cummings?
Yes.
Caleb Gunter?
Yes.
Carrie Villeneuve?
Yes.
Charlie Lykoff?
Yes.
Deborah Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Greg Martin?
Yes.
Joanne Smith? Mariana Seiler?
Yes.
Mary Peliquin?
No, and no for all of District 1.
Tangerine Moore?
Yes.
Zilla Tarko?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Just to clarify, we did not approve the acquisition of this site.
Motion carries 11 to 1. Yes.
Mary, that's District 1 minus 1. I live there too.
Oh, sorry.
Me too.
Sorry, Caleb.
And Greg.
And Greg.
Oh.
And Alex. And Bill.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah, but they didn't vote.
She does.
Where's Ken? Hey,
All
thanks
right.
for the creativity.
Hey, thank you.
Creative deal.
All right, we have pickleball proposal at Snyder Park. Do we need take a brief recess by any chance? Everybody good?
I know we made some people unhappy tonight, but I think we've done our job as being stewards of the park bond money.
Absolutely.
What we were charged with.
I think long-term,
Charlie, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
yeah.
I do think we're not going to see a vacant piece of dirt is just going to show up for 4 acres to turn into a park. We're going to have to see some creative things like this and be able to kick it around and figure out the best way to approach it. But it's just not out there, you know?
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think.
Not now.
This is
Maybe
less
next year
than an
sometime,
acre.
but not now.
It's a stretch. But next up, we have pickleball at Snyder.
I'm sorry, can I get some help? I don't know where it is.
That's right there, the third
Right
one
there.
up.
Third one down and right inside.
Up.
Oh, here it is.
There you go.
And then on the bottom, if you click, see the arrows that point out wide, 3 over. To the right, go right.
To the.
Two
okay.
more, one more, that one.
Which one?
Oh.
This
Nope,
one?
left one.
This one.
Left, yeah,
Yeah.
right there.
And screen, there you go.
Click that.
Click it.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm feeling a little challenged here, sorry. I haven't used I need a mouse, you know? Thank you all for the opportunity. My name is Ellen Bogdanoff, and I represent My Park Initiative, which is a P3. And I thought if you would indulge me, I just wanted to explain the P3 process, because when I've communicated with some of the neighborhoods and some of the community, they didn't really understand why the process was the way it is. My client submitted a P3 proposal several months ago. We went through a pretty arduous process. Under the P3 statute in the state of Florida, you submit an unsolicited proposal which remains confidential, and you submit a fee of $25,000 for the city to review to see if it's viable and if they're willing to bring it before the commission for a vote. We did that. We went through several months of meetings, and the reason that it wasn't made public is because the statute requires confidentiality until it is approved by the commission. The approval by the commission, which happened about 2 weeks ago, is actually just the very beginning of the process. We are in the process now kind of reaching out to the community, showing them the vision and the proposal. We have to negotiate a comprehensive agreement. This is similar to what happened at Lockhart, what happened to the Swimming Hall of Fame. It's negotiating a comprehensive agreement based on our proposal with the city, but we also have to go through the normal development process. So there will be months of the opportunity for the community to engage with the development to make sure that it's consistent with our vision and what the community wants. As a lot of you may know, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the nation. It's the #1 amenity that people ask when they go into a community, do you have pickleball? I'm a tennis player, so I kind of get it, you know, ball and a racket. But it's one of the things that we've noted is that there has been a tremendous demand in the city of Fort Lauderdale. There's hours of waiting time, and they're trying to, you know, pepper the city with pickleball courts. But what we're trying to create is a vision of a community place where people come and actually hang out for the entire day. Okay, I'm going to ask the millennial, how do I
If
move
you just
this?
see an arrow down, you'll be able to.
Is it this one? Oh, okay, got it. It's just like a normal computer. Thank you. All right. So there obviously is the public need. You have the existing count is insufficient for the demand, and that's clear. That was clear to us by the number of emails that the commissioners were getting. We need more pickleball courts. There's long wait times. Experienced players are leaving the city to play. We're finding other cities that are local, like Plantation, are building bigger facilities, and we're losing them. New players play one or no games at all. Game duration and social nature requires large density of courts in one location. You can just show up by yourself. It's very different than a lot of other sports. People from all over the community just kind of show up and they do pickup games, which is very different than the tennis community or the golf community or a lot of other sports communities where you have to kind of create, you know, a plan. Pickleball is not like that. Pickleball was the top sports priority for improvement in recent Park and Rec's community survey, and pickleball unifies a very diverse community. And if you want to spend some time out at Holiday Park, where a lot of people play pickleball, you'll see the diversity of the community, and it's kind of cool to see. The only frustration is everybody's kind of sitting around waiting for their turn. We are a public-private partnership, and My Park Initiative, we're looking to go into Snyder Park. That's where the proposal was. We're looking at the southwest corner of Snyder Park, because I've already said a lot of this stuff, so I don't want to repeat it. And this is kind of the picture. A lot of you may not know this, but in the 50s and 60s, Snyder Park, near where the water is, had an active beach. People used to come and hang out and swim there. I remember talking to Commissioner McKenzie, and he said he used to go there all the time as a kid. That's where he used to hang out. There's not much going on there. That part of the park is used for the transfer station and the seaweed mound, and there's not a lot of activity. We're looking at about 9 acres of the park, of which we are going to activate to put in a pickleball facility that will be able to hold tournaments, as well as provide the public with tremendous access to the courts. And I don't know if you have any questions here, but the picture on the right is actually just from the 1980s, where actually it was still active. This is just, a concept of what we're looking at. We would have a number of courts that would be able to attract tournaments. We're looking to put some food establishments in there, activating the beach by putting all kinds of amenities, and we're looking at bocce ball, shuffleball courts, beach volleyball, natural shaded area, portable special event stage, pop-up art shows with venues, and obviously a restaurant. We're trying to make this a destination. So if you are a pickleball person and perhaps maybe you want to take your family there, your family can do other stuff while you play pickleball. And we don't really have anything like that in the city. We are not looking to touch any part of what we call the passive part and the beauty of Snyder Park. This would be an area where we would actually have a fence where you would have pedestrian access. We've talked to some of the members of the community. They don't want people coming in the front of the park. Our goal would be to set up the entrance along the perimeter road and come in through the back entrance of the park. So it really wouldn't disturb anything going on in Snyder Park right now. We haven't really finished the negotiations with the city, so keep in mind that this is conceptual. We're looking at anywhere between 35 and 40 courts, depending on the overall outline and the architectural plans and what fits and what makes sense. There will be a clubhouse, there'll be locker rooms, a training center, and a pro shop. And why Snyder Park? And it's really simple. Snyder Park is a community park, and it has the amenities, and with that beach, it was kind of unique. And considering that we don't have a lot of park space, and this particular park space is being underutilized and actually isn't active at all and being used for the seaweed, we thought it would be a great place to renovate and to bring the community together. This is kind of a conceptual of what it might look like, and this is what we presented in our proposal. The courts, you would have a center court. We're going to have wheelchair accessible courts because this is the kind of sport that if you're 5 or you're 80, you can play it. One of the gentleman that is basically promoting this and bringing it forward to the city plays his father, and he, for the first time, I think last week, beat him. So it's a sport that is, I don't know if any of you all have played it, but certainly something that a lot of people enjoy. The 2 players, one is here today, and it's Rich Campillo and Brad Tuckman. They are locals. I'm not going to call them pickleball fanatics. We'll call them pickleball enthusiasts. And they're doing this for the love of the sport. And they're here with the P3. This is this is our debut, right? This is kind of one of our first meetings with the community. We've talked with Edgewood. We're kind of meeting with the business leaders of the community as well as other neighborhoods. We encourage you to let us know who you would like us to meet with. This is going to be near the Edgewood community in Snyder Park, but this is a citywide community effort. So if you have a neighborhood and you have a bunch of people who are interested in pickleball, we're happy to come talk to them, let them know what's going on. Our goal is to get feedback. We are just starting the part where we're going to be negotiating with the city, and that's going to be on, the general parameters of the P3, and then when we get into the detail of what this is going to look like and what amenities are going to be there, it is something that we need to talk about for everyone. Talking with Edgewood, they were talking about the traffic issue on 4th and the perimeter road, and maybe we need to put a light there. They would like one there, so that's something that we're going to put on our list. So we're here to get the list, to get the questions, to get anything that you need and the groups that you all think we need to talk to, because we've started the process. So we're real excited about it, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. You're gonna let me off that easy? I'm okay with that.
No. Thank you very much. I see on the proposal it says 41 courts, but I'm looking on the sketch, it's showing 37. I'm not sure where I'm missing some, but I mean, it looks very nice overall as a build-out.
We have several iterations, and I do apologize, but we weren't getting a lot of notice, and when we put the PowerPoint together, we might have stuck one iteration in, and, you know, it was different than the proposal. It's just, we're building a tournament facility that's gonna be completely open to the public. So whatever fits and makes sense and looks good and doesn't compromise the other amenities, we will do, but that's something that we're gonna be deciding as we move forward with the process.
Okay. Go ahead.
Could you just explain what the stage and, I'm sorry, I just lost it in here. Stage and performance stage, what's that all about?
We were talking about a concept where people might have, you might have, small music shows or, like entertainment for people. If you're going to have a tournament, just a small stage near but everything is kind of open for negotiation because we are still in the process of putting together the design. We don't have a site plan yet, right? So everything here is conceptual. It's like when people come and they, even the Galleria Mall, everything is conceptual at this point. There's nothing specific. But it was one of the amenities we thought might be cool if people wanted to, I don't know, have a pickleball party. So they bring in, I don't know, a little band to, liven the place up.
Well, I don't live near there, and so I don't know what the residents would think of loud entertainment. It's just something to consider,
This is right on top of the airport, so any noise we make is going to be drowned out by the airport and 595. But there are already concerts, and I'm sure Edgewood could speak to it, that are there that we've done the decibel testing, and obviously there's rules within the park that you can't go higher than a certain decibel. I think the challenge they're having is with the bass right now with some of the concerts and the pounding, which we're not going to be producing.
Okay, thanks.
How are you going to create the water so it's safe to swim in?
We're in the process of hiring several different professionals who will go in. When I talk to Parks and Rec, they believe it's already swimmable in the deeper end of it, where you sometimes have the challenges in the shallow end and the bacteria levels. But we have to hire the professionals that are going to do the testing to determine what we need to do, because the Department of Health is not going to sign off if it's not healthy to swim.
I have a quick question. I go to Snyder Park all the time. I go to the dog park there. I know that area that you're conceptualizing is kind of a dead zone, if I'm not mistaken. There's really nothing there right now. I know it's right adjacent to Perimeter Road, basically all those commercial buildings that are around the airport. I for one would love to see something happen with that area. One thing I do. I did like what you were talking about, but I don't see on the conceptual design here is the back entrance. I know that it does have that one main entrance to the area, and I'm curious to know if, I don't see the entrance on here, and would it tie in to the existing road system so that you could actually, if you wanted to go there and say play volleyball, if there's other volleyball courts or other stuff, or go to the beach, I know it could be almost problematic to come in through the main entrance and find your way back there. I mean, it's pretty confusing.
So, and it'll probably more clearly define when we get to the site plan proposal. It is coming off of that street through the perimeter. So everybody's going to have to go down, come around and come in the back way. The community at large and those who enjoy Snyder Park don't want, the dog park and the butterfly garden and everything that's there disturbed.
Yes.
It's not our intent to do that. And as a matter of fact, because the goal is to obviously be open later than the park hours, like when we do concerts, we're going to probably make some sort of perimeter fence, but allow for pedestrian traffic to walk through, because that will prevent people from driving through the front, thinking that, oh, okay, well, I'll just drive through the front and park there. There will be clear signage that says, pickleball facility.
So it would be isolated from the rest of the park. You couldn't drive into that pickleball entrance and go to the rest of the park or go to the dog park. You'd have to leave and go back out and around.
You could. You'd have to walk.
Oh, okay.
You could walk, take a bike. The goal is to have all kinds of transportation there.
Okay.
So, yeah, you could, but you'd have
So
to
it would be
walk-
open.
Yeah, and we want to make it dog-friendly, too.
Okay.
You know, but again, this is all negotiated with the, with the city.
And funding-wise, I know you said you're private partnership type deal. Is that something that is this part of the bond that we're going to be looking to?
No, this
gonna be
is-
funded privately?
This is funded privately. It's not going to cost the city a dime. And then whatever facilities are there for Parks and Rec, we would pay for the cost of removal. That was part of the agreement. And we're going to be investing, our folks are going to be investing all of the money to build this.
So do you pay to get into the park, or do we pay for court time?
Basically, we're going to look at the models that you have at Holiday Park, that you have, when you have like a membership at a particular park, and then if you want to play, we're going to have, a big thing for the city was to have free access. So there are going to be a number of hours that we're still working out the logistics where people can come and play for absolutely free. But obviously, if you're going to play at night, like when you go to Holiday, you have to pay for the lights. And we'll have membership opportunities, or you could come for a day pass, or just, maybe buy an hour of court time. So there's going to be a lot of variety for every single person, but one of the big things that the city was concerned about was to having some opportunity for the community come and play.
I just want to say your timing's really good. I drove by Tiger Tail the other day and saw the lakefront, and Saturday, I think there were probably hundreds of people there with their kids in the water and stuff. So I really like the idea of incorporating that and bringing that back as well.
Thank you.
So the city wouldn't manage that part of the park. They would stay just Snyder Park, and then it would be managed independently through the private.
Correct.
Is the city going to get any funds from the owners of I shouldn't say the owners, proprietors of the pickleball facility?
Well, one of the main things that we're doing is there's the old train station, and there's about 5 employees, and then they use part of it for parking. So we are going to invest in another site that the city has selected to build the facilities to house those and for expansion for parks, to bring in potentially more people and a parking area. So we're going to invest that, and then any other financial gain to the city is all going to be part of the negotiations of the comprehensive agreement.
Okay.
How long is the lease you guys are negotiating with the city on this?
We're going to make certain requests, obviously, for this to be viable. There's usually standard is like a minimum of 50-year lease. So that's usually standard. But again, none of this has been decided because this all goes into negotiation with the city.
I was just asking.
Nothing else?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We have people that would like to speak.
Sounds great.
First, we have Wendy Wills. Following will be Jacqueline Scott. Please.
What is our role here tonight with this?
It's informational purposes.
Informational only? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so it would be Veronica Mayer and following Jacqueline Scott. Jacqueline Mayer, okay. Okay. Wendy will follow. And then Stephen. Right. Yes, Stephen. So Veronica, Wendy, Stephen.
All right. Hey, everyone. So again, my name is Veronica Maher. I've been a resident of Fort Lauderdale since 2005, an Edgewood resident since 2014, and a Edgewood Civic Association board member since 2015. So obviously with Ellen speaking here, I definitely learned a little bit more tonight. So maybe my impassioned speech, I might have to tone a little down in some places, but I do want to say that I am an athlete. I was a Division I softball player. If it wasn't for parks and public facilities for me to practice on, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. But I'm here to say that I strongly oppose this type of development in Snyder Park. I think Snyder Park is a truly beautiful oasis. I would almost call it a natural preserve that's really in the middle of Fort Lauderdale. It's very different than a lot of the other city parks that exist. There's a lot of old growth, the live oaks, the animals that I see in there. So I did make it very clear when Ben, our commissioner, had kind of mentioned that there was some, rumblings about maybe a private offering of coming to build a bunch of pickleball courts. And we definitely said that was something I didn't think that, Edgewood really would support because it is such a unique oasis of a location. We weren't aware of how the P3 process works, so now we understand why we weren't kind of informed beforehand. We were, I think, a little upset as a community because I saw it posted on Facebook by Mayor Trantellis about the pickleball courts. So we kind of felt like we were a little bit, kind of taken aback without any community feedback in that sense. So we definitely appreciate that we have this opportunity to kind of talk with you right now. I just wanted to say I'm pretty much in the park almost every day. One of the great things that we did do a couple of years ago is we put in a back entrance within the community so that the neighbors can actually walk through the fence. And I used to feel like it was my own personal park once upon a time, right? And we've definitely seen all the improvements that have gone into Snyder, the bike trails and the food forest. A lot of us board members are constantly volunteering within the park as well. So we've really seen a lot of those improvements, and I've seen how much the community really utilizes that. I see people coming over from, across 84 too, not just in the Edgewood neighborhood. And Edgewood is a very large community as well. I think we have 1,300 homes that make up Edgewood. So this really is a wonderful oasis for us. When I'm in there, I see green heron, I see black-crowned night herons, I see ibises, I see great egrets, I see red-tailed hawks, songbirds, snapping turtles. The other day I was running and there was a giant snapping turtle crossing the road. The very variety of butterflies that I see in there in the butterfly garden. It's really, really a special place. There's a couple of monkeys that hang out in Snyder. I'm sure people have maybe heard that come up from Dania every once in a while. I've even seen a coyote, right? A coyote in downtown Fort Lauderdale, right? Where else are you seeing that? Nowhere, right? And I just think it's such a special place that really needs to be preserved. So I'm just going to kind of say, maybe 6 or 8 pickleball courts, but 41, like in an entertainment center. We already deal with the music and the concerts, and it rattles our homes. And again, we kind of don't know when those concerts are happening. It's always on a holiday weekend, and I got hurricane impact windows, and it still rattles my house. And, city code isn't working on the weekend, so there's nobody to field our complaints. I use the decibel meter, and it's at 90 in my tiki hut, and so I can't even enjoy my own backyard. So the thought of taking what is such a, beautiful green space and putting more pavement down, right? We're trying to increase green space, not decrease green space. So I just really, I just want to say that I think not only is it, valuable green space for people, but the animals that live there, right? Like we have taken over. We see this everywhere in South Florida. We have infiltrated the species that live here, right? Let's live harmoniously with them and keep this beautiful park what it is, as opposed to adding more pavement. And that is my personal opinion. Oh, and then 9 acres out of 93, that's a 10th of the park. Like, it is a 10th of the park. And I don't know if a lot of people, like, we drive the back way to the airport, you go on Perimeter Road. That is a super busy road. It always gets backed up. It's really hard to see around that corner. You've got all those warehouses, all those deliveries. We already have so many issues with trucks coming through our neighborhood because the GPSs send them wrong. I think we had the pods trucks that kept running over one of our neighbors because they think they can get through to Perimeter Road. And so I just don't see that it's the right space. We've got a parks fund out there. We're trying to acquire land. Let's acquire land for some pickleball. I just don't think it deserves a spot in existing Snyder Park. So, and thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Wendy Wills.
I'm a little short, sorry. Good evening, I'm Wendy Wills, and I'm the president of Edgewood Civic Association. I've lived with my husband and daughter in Edgewood since 2004. I walk everywhere, and I use Snyder Park. When our daughter was little, we would go to Snyder Park. I'm kind of, as the president, I'm a little stuck between a rock and a hard place. I have people that don't want it. I have people that want it. You know, and I kind of sit kind of in the middle. I like the idea of pickleball courts. That many? No. I think it's a little too much for the park. Maybe they can tone it down, you know, bring it down the amount. I will say on our side of town, we have a great park. Edgewood also, if you've ever visited Edgewood, we also have a large passive park at the end of 15th Avenue, which is a really nice area that is maintained by the county. But going back to Snyder Park, you have the bike trails, you have the dog park. I remember when the beach was open for a short time. But I need to see, and this is the first chance I've had to actually see the plans. I know that we're going to sit down. They're going to come to our board. We usually take July and August off, but I am going to have them sit down with the board. We are going to have an August meeting. I will have them come to our Edgewood Civic Association meeting and let everybody in the neighborhood know about this. And we'll go further with the talks. Veronica did mention about 4th Avenue and Perimeter Road. I also talked to them about it. It is very, very busy. Very. It's actually a very dangerous section because people cut through, go down 4th Avenue, and make that left to go back to the back way to the airport. All the Uber drivers, the hotels on 84, it is very dangerous to make that left. Now, I understand you'd make a right to go to the pickleball courts, but in general, that is a very dangerous section, which really needs a traffic light. And of course, we do have a lot of animals and birds, and we've got Dennis and Veronica. Those are the two African monkeys that actually live in Snyder Park. And they kind of hop over where Fire Station 3 is on 4th and 28th Street. You see them going into Whit and Rogers, you know, Floyd Hall Park there. Need to be concerned about them and all the wildlife. I was walking my dogs up 9th and 2.5 weeks ago, and there was a coyote coming right at me. So we have a lot of animals. So, but I mean, my daughter plays pickleball religiously. It would be very nice. I would like not to have the concerts there that are booming, very loud music, where you can hear the music in your house. So I don't really think you need an entertainment center.
No.
But maybe just tone it down a bit. That's it. Any questions for me?
I do have a quick question. I know traffic is always a big issue in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
It was one of my questions coming off of Perimeter Road. I thought maybe it might ease up a little bit of the the main entrance traffic, but this might be an opportunity to address stuff like that. And I, think that this board typically would favor what the community says, understanding that there is a big need for pickleball courts.
I agree.
But
I mean,
I'm curious when they Snyder Park is where I got vaccinated, and the military basically went on there and set up this whole little drive to go through, and I got to see parts of Snyder Park I never even knew existed. How did that affect you guys over there when they were doing that? I know traffic was backed all the way up to 84.
Right.
for a while.
It was, and I'm a part of CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. So when actually it started at Holiday Park, I was at Holiday Park. I was also helping a little bit out at Snyder Park. Basically, you couldn't use the park at all when the vaccines, and I also got vaccinated there as well. You couldn't use the park. So it did affect, and also the traffic was horrendous going up 4th Avenue.
As chair, I kind of have to interject here. We're going down different rabbit holes right now, and we had a presentation on a general plan. I have no problem with some general input, but we're getting off discussion on 3 and 4 legs. If we could just keep with public input.
We don't have a vote or anything on this, do we?
No vote.
No. We're not voting, correct? No. I'm fine with capping it at 3 minutes, but
Okay.
at this point, we're
You all set?
talking long on moot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, though. Thank you.
Next, we have Stephen Goldstein.
So I'm sensitive to your time issue, but I had a few things that I'd like to raise. We've had a tremendous problem with flooding in that area, and we've got a project, now a storm project going on to help. Will pavement, and you use the term pavement, is that going to impact, will that decrease the ability to absorb water, et cetera? I'm just going to raise some issues. We don't have to answer them now, but when you come to our community in the near future, because we thought we weren't informed very well. Now I realize that there was a reason that we weren't informed. The term that came up to us was 24 courts. That was the original figure. Now it's 35, 40, 41, et cetera, et cetera. I think size is going to be an issue. You mentioned food establishment. I don't know if you said plural or not. You're talking about one or more, and what kind? I thought maybe just a snack bar with refreshments for pickleball players, but if you're talking about a restaurant now and entertainment, et cetera, the hours, what are they? Does it close at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, midnight, et cetera, et cetera? These are key issues, and we've heard nothing about any of these. And then lastly, this is a little bit selfish, but can Edgewood lobby for themselves? You mentioned something about 3 hours for the community. Is the community Fort Lauderdale or is the community Edgewood? You know, if I'm elderly and I would love to learn how to play pickleball, it sounds great. And I've got a granddaughter that's going to grow up. I'd love to, when she gets old enough, et cetera, et cetera. One nice thing is that it does span diversity of age, of all sorts of kinds of diversity, et cetera. It would be delightful. If you're going to take park land, if you're going to take trees, and no one's mentioned how many trees, if any, will be sacrificed, I'd like to know that, specifically account for trees. If you're going to take park land, this sounds to me like a little bit of a win rather than a lose. I mean, this is something that's social, it's exercise, elderly can do it, young people can do it, et cetera. So I'm hearing some of the positive aspects, but I'm raising some of the negatives. But to come back to my selfish comment, will I be able to play there, or is it going to be so busy, fastest growing sport, and is it like tee times for a golf course, et cetera, et cetera? Will I be able to play in my own neighborhood? Are you going to reserve time for Edgewood citizens to play in Snyder Park? I'll stop there because of time. I'd love to go on, but.
Thank you.
Pardon? I kept it a little bit tight.
No, you did a great job.
Thank you.
And I do think a lot of these comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but you never got a chance to meet with the
HOA.
No, right, okay. So probably a lot of these comments are from your guys' surprise with hearing about the project and not having those communications yet. And that is a big part of the P3 process. So maybe once you're able to have those conversations and then eventually they come back to us again, which is how it happened also for some of our other P3s, when they come back to us again, once you started to resolve those issues, we can hear a lot more of how do we maneuver it, change it, massage it to make it more of what everybody wants.
Right. I agree that that a lot of these comments, and I love hearing them, but they're not relevant to us specifically right now as much as it'd be a good thing for this discussion to be done at a HOA locally, and you guys have that chance for true input and discussion, and then at some point it will probably come to our table. But right now it was just a presentation, and I thank you for the presentation. It was lovely. Any more comments, questions, or concerns?
No, I think that's the starting point for them to have a presentation now that the city commission's voted. I think, if I remember correctly, it was a unanimous vote by the city commission to move forward with whatever discussions, whatever thing is going to happen, and then get with the community and keep them informed so they don't feel like they're left out of the process. And unfortunately, they have to be left out of the process in the beginning until you can get past stage one. But it sounds like you're willing to work with them and make it a viable thing for everybody. And just, the biggest thing we're hearing is, try to keep some of the courts from expanding from 24 to 41 seems to be the biggest issue that some of the residential community surrounding it has, and also the free time available for residents where they don't have to actually pay to play.
Yes, sir.
Which sounds not good for a city park to pay to play.
Thank you. Carl, we still have the holiday park update.
Yes, this is just me bringing this back because we had the old iteration.
Why didn't any of us bring that to your attention, Carl?
We had the old iteration at the last meeting, and so I wanted to make sure that I correct that and provide the most current version that the Homeowners Association has seen, that our AECOM folks have designed, and that's pretty much it at this moment. So nothing for you to vote on, but it's just an updated design.
Caleb, do you mind if I very, very quickly just make some comments on this proposal, since this is, I was the one that requested that.
I understand you requested it. I have no issue with that, except that there's no one else in this room to hear it except for us, so let's just keep it ourselves.
No, I understand, but this is the only.
No, I understand.
To even communicate with.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll be fast. Carl, can you tell me the square footage of the play area and the splash pad? I think it's 4 and 2. The current square footage.
No, I don't have the square footage in front of me.
Okay, so my comments and feedback, in addition to the general stuff I gave last time to the other proposal, I do like the 8 additional pickleball courts. I hope that even if we go forward, even if the proposal we just heard does go forward, that we would still keep those, because local walking to pickleball is very important also. So on the kids' play area, I understand why that got moved from the location from where it was currently marked as number 5. I understand why that happened. Splash pad, same thing. However, I don't think that part of the concept of moving it from the area that's marked as 5 to this area meant decreasing the size. You can build a play area that incorporates trees. You don't have to be limited by the trees. And I am not advocating cutting down any trees, to be clear. I'm not advocating cutting down any trees. However, we let Panthers cut down whatever trees they wanted to cut down for a private facility.
They moved them, remember?
They moved them. They moved them, okay. Anyway, so I'm not advocating cutting down trees. I'm just saying, like, we cut down trees to build a private facility, but then we're gonna say, oh, these trees prevent us from building the playground that we promised everyone when we asked them to vote to tax themselves. I just don't understand it. Like, we were promised a first-class, world-class playground. We were promised a large splash pad. Victoria Park was against this parks bond prior to those promises being made. Those promises were made. We all went out and whipped up support for this thing, and now we're coming back with what looks like basically the exact same playground and a pretty small splash pad. I just don't think that's right. I think these 2 T-ball fields could be moved if that's really the problem is spacing. Move those T-ball fields. There's plenty of other places you can put them. So I think that increasing the size of the playground and the splash pad are crucial. Just to meet the expectations of people that supported and voted for this bond, the representations that were made. The walking, jogging trail was huge with the neighborhood in terms of what they wanted. I liked that it goes to the whole park. That was what was discussed about. It looks like it goes really close to the road. As someone who has used the current walking, jogging trail, the one that is no longer there because of the Panthers, I mean, that had shade because it was under the trees. It was nowhere near the road. I hope this isn't as close to the road as it looks like, and I hope there's some type of shade provided. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to get the level of use that we intend for it to have. And then my point remains that my last big point is that I'm just disappointed in the lack of anything like interesting. I mean, you give me $20 million to go do something cool in a park, I'm gonna do some really cool stuff. I'm not gonna build a $10 million parking garage and then just fix up the existing facilities. I just don't get it. I mean, I just am really disappointed in the lack of anything innovative, anything iconic, anything cool, anything eye-catching. It's just replacing some existing things, sprucing up some existing things, including the tennis facility, which I love, but I do pay every time I go there. Like, if you need some more, and I've never once gone there and been like, oh, this place where I pay to rent the court, like, I sure wish someone would spend $1 million to make it nicer. Like, no. Like, I'm happy paying like $7, $8. If I don't want to pay $10 to spruce it up. If you think it's worth it to spruce it up, just charge people more to play. But I don't think it needs that. And I don't see the idea of why you would spend parts of my money to improve a facility that you're charging people to use, rather than using that parts of the money to build free facilities for everybody, right? I mean, I just don't get that aspect of it. In the presentation that Jenny made for Huizenga Plaza, like, I thought that had some really cool, interesting stuff in it. I loved the moundscape area. Last time you presented the other one, I specifically said, like, we should do some earthenwork thing, like a giant hill people could climb up. Just do something where it's not more hardscaping, where you make, like, you could do it either way. You can do, like, earthen concaves for, like, holes for people to run down and up and out of, for, like, natural parkour type things. I mean, I don't know. The whole idea was to do something big and creative and exciting, and we're not doing that with this plan. And it was $20 million, and we're fixing up existing facilities. So, like, in the number 5 area, like, go over there and build, a bigger, cooler version of that moundscape thing that we're seeing in the other one. So that is my feedback. Thank you guys for your time. Thanks for listening. Hopefully AECOM does too.
Thank you, Carrie.
Carl, can I ask about an update on the gymnasium? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can we get an update on the gymnasium and the YMCA? I actually thought that was a done deal, but it sounds like it's not the case.
So, so they are still in the stages of generating revenue and donations and sponsorships.
YMCA is. Okay. Are we going to knock down our gym before we know whether or not they're going to build their gym?
So at this point, the gym isn't coming down at this time until we get further along with it.
Okay, because I saw it's on this plan, so the gym will stay. Okay.
Good.
Well, the gym is always staying. You're talking about the social services building, right? Because
no, well,
the gym is on this.
Right.
The basketball gymnasium.
But am I correct? If the YMCA builds a gym, our gym's coming down.
Right. So as I understand the plan, the YMCA will conduct everything that is indoors, and our team will conduct everything on the exterior, meaning the fields.
But if YMCA builds, is this gymnasium being torn down, or is YMCA just going to run it?
The YMCA, my understanding is the YMCA will run it, but that's something I'll need to verify.
Torn down. Yeah, it's just a social services building. I think just a social services building gets torn down, the gymnasium stays, and it's just run by YMCA. At least that's what this represents and what I've been told. So who knows?
Okay.
That'd be great. I just want to make sure there's a gym at Holiday Park.
There will be a gym.
Thank you. Anything else on Holiday Park? Any communications to the commission?
Make a motion.
I do have one question for Carl on something else. I have one question for Carl, but it's not a communication. Hardy Park pickleball courts? How many are going there? No, Hardy Park.
Hardy Park, where can you put the?
She's by South Side. So right now we have the line court, and there's been some discussion to have. Yeah, we've had some discussion of adding some courts there, but I'm not sure that's finalized yet.
Okay, somebody told me that. There were
Yeah, because
courts going there.
yeah, there is some discussion to add some pickleball courts there, but there's also we have a group that uses the area, the Bowling Green area, and the space just west of that. So that's ideally where the pickleball courts would go. So there's still some discussions that need to be had regarding that.
Yeah, because that's like a cricket.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
I'd like to throw out one more comment. You know, the P3 process is fantastic for cities, by the way. And I think it really evolved out of a way to regentrify and redevelop flooded areas in various communities, et cetera. It's amazing to see it find its way into our recreation world. And there's some really great things. You know, the ski Rixon up in Deerfield was a great public-private partnership. Many moons ago when I was running concerts and festivals, we did a public-private partnership. But I do think we need to be a little careful with it because the process leaves us all in the dark and we have surprise community people like we had today to their park. It's one thing to see an old building get knocked down and know that someone's going to come in and rebuild it and we're going to see new development there. But to come in and start modifying our parks, it's a little tough. I don't have an answer for this. It's just a comment to say this is the second piece of land we've kind of seen the P3 process surprise us with. It's exactly what happened at the one-stop shop site, right? We were not a part of that.
State statute.
I get it. I'm just letting us know that the P3 process has found its way to recreation, not just to redevelopment and regentrification. And we should keep an eye on that.
Can I say one thing? I want people to think about this. This is a passive park. We have very few open areas for birds, animals, etc. If we need to build something in there, can we keep that in mind? Because we don't know the impact until it's too late. You know, you think, oh yeah, great, pickleball courts. But the amount of noise, the amount of traffic, the amount of everything that I saw on the plan, I really hear the Edgewood people saying, you know, we have a lot more here than just people. And we need to keep that in mind because we are losing so much on this planet. We've got to keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
My next item on the agenda is adjournment. Any motion?
I make a motion.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
I have some Huizinga, I have some Huizinga Park QR codes for you guys that they wanted to give you guys. So if you guys can come and get some. And I think we have one member that did not come and show with their shirt, but we'll try to take a picture in August. and